Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's alumni panel discussion. What is really special about tonight's discussion is that all of our panelists graduated from SUNY Orange with a degree in either human services or education. They all have walked the same hallways you do, sat in the same front of the same professors in the same classrooms that you have. They all have had the same questions you have on how to navigate college life, balance coursework, and what to do after your associate's degree. They are here for the next hour to answer those questions and share some of their experiences. I hope you find value in their advice and take something away from the conversation. My name is Jen DeAndre, and I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the SUNY Orange Foundation. All of our alumni tonight are volunteering their time because of their love of SUNY Orange and their desire to give back. I want to encourage you to remain connected to SUNY Orange Alumni Relations even after you graduate, and possibly one day you too will be sharing your experiences with upcoming students. During the discussion tonight, we're going to ask that you remain muted. Please feel free to use the chat at any time to present a question. We are taking some time at the end of the discussion to answer any questions you may have. Thank you again for joining us tonight. And now I'm going to turn it over to our alumnus, Chris Wynkoop, who is going to be moderating the discussion tonight.
All right, thank you, Jen. Once again, my name's Chris Wynkoop. I'm a graduate of the class of 2014 of SUNY Orange, and I'm thrilled to be here to help moderate and ask some great questions to a very amazing panel of real experts here on the whole SUNY Orange experience, and then some experiences that they've had even since SUNY Orange. So once again, it is my privilege to be here, and I'm so looking forward to tonight's discussion, and thank you to the SUNY Orange Foundation for having me. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel. First up, I would like to introduce Colleen Otto, who is she graduated in the class of 2019. Her major was human services. She's currently enrolled at Hunter College for psychology and is expecting to graduate with her bachelor's degree in May. Hi, Colleen, how are you?
Hello, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I'm freshly graduated 2019, so hoping I can bring something of recent value, perhaps.
Well, that's great. And what's interesting about Colleen, we all kind of talked last week, is that she originally was at SUNY Orange for a period of time, and then her life took her out west to California. Is that correct?
Opposite, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I had gone to California, then I came back.
So you're a returning student
I am a
to
returning
SUNY
student,
Orange.
yes.
So that's great, a recent graduate. So I'm sure you'll have some interesting insight as to that experience, as some of the people listening in very well might be in that certain situation as well. So that's great. Well, it's great to have you here, Colleen. Thanks for joining us. All right, next, it's my privilege to introduce Gina Castelonia, who is also a human services major and a graduate of the class of 2016. After graduating from SUNY Orange, Gina received her bachelor's degree from SUNY Albany and her master's degree from Fordham University, both degrees in social work, and she is a licensed master social worker. She currently works as a therapist for Dr. Michelle Winchester Vega and Associates. Welcome, Gina.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this.
Awesome. It's so great to see you. So great to have you. I'm sure it's been kind of an interesting year in your line of work with COVID. I bet it might be kind of different than what you maybe were expecting to happen. I guess that's anyone in any job, but I'm sure it's been an interesting year.
Absolutely. I had just started my job 2 months prior to the shutdown. Yeah, so it definitely has been a different experience than I had planned, but I always say I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity. So definitely different, but I'm loving every second of it. It is very busy, but I love where I am, so.
Awesome. Well, I hope that maybe we'll be able to kind of get a little bit more into that and how COVID has maybe changed your perception on things, and then also how maybe some of the skills that you acquired while you were at SUNY Orange have helped you get through this challenging time. So welcome, it's great to have you here. Next, it's my privilege to introduce Genesis Ramos, who is also a human services major and a graduate of the class of 2013. After attending SUNY Orange, Genesis received her bachelor's degree in sociology with a concentration in human services from SUNY New Paltz. And then she went on to get her master's in public administration from Marist College. She currently works as the director of Plaintree for Sun River Health, and is a freelance justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion consultant. Welcome, Genesis. How are you today?
Good evening, everyone. I'm doing well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. I look forward to the conversation and to chat with all of you about my experience. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. Now we have two education majors that are joining us on the panel here today as well. First up, we have Jackie Thompson, who is a graduate of the class of 2014, and she currently works as a teacher for Head Start. Hey, Jackie, how you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited, actually. Tell me to talk about education, and I am your girl. This is what I love to do. This is what I believe in. So I'm happy to be here with these lovely ladies to share in this discussion that I hope will be lively and informative. So thank you all for having me.
Very good. Thanks, Jackie. Now, Jackie, if memory serves me right, you kind of returned as an adult student to SUNY Orange.
That is correct. As a mother who nurtured her 3 children into their teenage years, I decided it was my time to go back to school to do this formally because I was working in education. Um, don't ask me what door it happened via, but I taught kindergarten for a number of years. And they suggested, listen, go get this done the right way. And so I did, and wow, just wow. I was happy to have done that.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure that you'll have an interesting perspective on things, being that you are an adult learner, and we're excited to share that with potentially some other adult learners that are joining us here on the session here tonight. So thanks for being with us, Jackie.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And finally, it's my privilege to introduce Sheri Savage, who is also an education major. She graduated in the class of 2017 and then went on to receive her bachelor's degree in early childhood education from SUNY New Paltz, and she is currently enrolled in the master's program in education for grades 1 through 6 and with a STEM concentration at SUNY New Paltz as well. So welcome, Sheri.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight and being a part of our panel. I'm very excited to speak with you all.
Great. It should be great. I think we have a great panel. Like I said, we talked last week, and everyone has just a wealth of knowledge. So we'll try to hit as many of these very interesting questions as possible as we go through this. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. So we've all graduated from SUNY Orange, so we all share a certain experience. We all walked the campus. We all probably had similar instructors in some of our more gen ed classes, but each of us then had a different experience as we went through our individual majors and then kind of formed our own path. So first, I'd like to direct a question to Gina and Genesis. We've all learned a bunch of skills at SUNY Orange, but if you had to pick maybe 1 or 2 skills that you still hold with yourself to this day that were unique to SUNY Orange, what would they be and how have they served you in your career? Gina, would you like to go first?
Sure. So one thing about my answer to this question, honestly, there's so many, but I think the thing that sticks out with me the most is I think advocating for myself and speaking up, because that came into play in terms of keeping on track with the time that I wanted to be there, getting my classes in, making sure that I was staying on track with what was necessary for the degree requirements. And then especially at the end when I was trying to transfer out, in making sure I was talking to the right people, networking with the right professors, making those connections. I think prior to SUNY Orange, I don't know, like I don't want to say that I sat back a little bit more, but I think it taught me really to get involved and to use my voice. And that definitely applies now, I definitely need that.
Absolutely. When we were talking the other day, something that stood out, and I wrote it down here, and maybe you might not even remember that you said this, but you said that SUNY Orange taught you how to learn.
Yes.
Embellish on that a little bit, and how that kind of has guided you to the point of now getting your master's degree and working in this field.
So I tell everyone that I say I'm a walking billboard for SUNY Orange because I gloat about my experience there at all times. It really did, because, like going back to what I was saying about using my voice, it really taught me how to be a student and taught me to make those connections again. Like I said, with professors, really voicing when I needed extra help with things, or going that extra mile to really see like what I needed to focus on more, any questions that I had, any other opportunities. Because I think prior to SUNY Orange, I was that student that did what I had to do to get by.
Sure.
That was always the report card comment.
Yeah.
But in college, that's not really a choice. It really taught me to value my education and the fact that this is an opportunity, and to not take advantage of it, to take advantage with my opportunity, but not to let it just pass me by without really making the most of my experience.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I always kind of related back. I got my business degree, and then I chose, for whatever reason, and this is another conversation, to become a funeral director. And when I was in that experience, I felt so privileged to be doing it, because not everyone has that opportunity. And I knew it was mine to lose. And so I knew the importance of putting in the time and to really make the most out of my learning. I think you can kind of relate to that. So now, so Genesis, what would be some of the skills that would have stood out, or some experience that really stood out to you that have helped shape your path here?
Yeah, so there's one specific moment that came to mind immediately when you asked this question. I cannot remember. It was definitely a sociology course, because it was a course with Carl Panesi. That much I remember. And we were watching a documentary, and it was a documentary about, if I'm not mistaken, because it's been a while, but it was a documentary about, I think it was something like, a day in the life of someone with autism or something along those lines. And I very distinctly remember that there was one part of that film where not only was that a moment that was very pivotal for me educationally, but it was also very pivotal for me as a human being. The narrator said something along the lines of, so often we want others to see the world through our eyes, but we don't often want to see the world through others' eyes. Mm-hmm. And this was in the context of him being with this autistic individual for however long of a period of time it was. But just during that time with that individual, he was able to gain that notion of, wow, I'm so embedded in my own view. I'm so embedded in my own kind of sphere, if you will. How important is it for me to step outside of myself and be able to look at other perspectives? And that was such a pivotal moment for me. It really was. And it stuck with me. And that was probably 10 years ago or 9 years ago, at least. And I still remember it to this day. Yeah.
I mean, and you work so much with the public and being an advocate for so many people. And I mean, I can totally see how that moment would have, it's just probably helped guide you even through all these years later. And it's so great that you have that memory.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. And another thing really that ties into being a public servant is a lot of times we want to be the person helping, the person serving, the person giving, but we also have to recognize when to ask for help. We have to recognize that in order for us to get certain things done, we have to collaborate and we have to be able to extend outside of our own reach. And so doing certain things, as much as we hate group projects, because let's be real, I can still admit to this day that I'm not a fan. It teaches you those skills, because when you get to the workplace, or even if you are a business owner one day, you still are going to have to collaborate to some extent. And so that's a skill that, you know, we all definitely can use. And even in terms of, and Gina said it, you know, when I was getting ready to transfer out, I remember sitting with Christine Henderson and asking her for a recommendation letter. And so we really just have to ask for help at different points in our educational career. And I was on the dean's list every semester, so I was doing something right.
Oh, hey, no, that's great. Awesome. I'd like to switch kind of gears here a little bit and talk to some of our education majors. If you were in some of the current students' shoes and you could recommend any certain organization you were maybe a part of, or some classes that really stood out to you that still have an impact to this day, what would some of those be, if anything? Sheri or Jackie? Jackie, just make sure you're muted.
I have such a light touch. I do work with children. Yes, I was a member of the FTA, Future Teachers Association, and I tell you, that was just a wonderful avenue of camaraderie and information. Just a little sidebar here. I am Jamaican, so my accent might come across a little strong sometimes. You might like, oh, what's that word she just said? So it's my accent. All right. So sometimes it's a little stronger than other times. So I just said a word and I heard it in my head. I'm like, ooh, okay.
No worries.
Yes. So I was a part of that organization, and it was wonderful. Where we could all come together, share ideas, make plans, look to the future, and see what paths we might be going down, and what's cutting edge information out there that we could access. So that was a wonderful time. Every week, at least once per week, we met, and these group of, I don't want to say youngsters because I was definitely not a youngster. Those of us in the department, the educational major, would come in and just share ideas and come together and really see that we were in the right place, that what we were about to embark upon was going to make a difference. And I was excited with that. And in particular, as one of the older ones in the group, I looked forward to seeing those youngsters, you know, budding with ideas and seeing their passion. Because sometimes you have gatherings that are void of such a passion. And it was wonderful to know that the education of our youngsters was still in good hands.
No, that's great. Sheri, do you have similar experiences to that?
I do. I was part of the Future Teachers Association also. And I loved it. We did so many things. We did adopt a family for Christmas. We were able to fill, I think it was like 6 full tables of clothes and toys for the family that we had gotten for the adopt a family. It was a safe space for us to talk to each other about class assignments that, you know, we didn't understand, or maybe we needed a little bit of help with, or we also had some guest speakers come in. They would talk to us about up and coming technology, maybe things that we hadn't heard of yet. And it was just a really great experience to be able to have a collaboration space and a communication space, excuse me, to be able to discuss what we were doing and what we wanted to do with the reason why we were at SUNY Orange in the first place. So.
No, that's great. That's certainly, it's kind of like, that group that you can kind of collaborate with, share ideas with, and just encourage each other. And I think that's great. And something that I think all of us could relate to, which kind of takes us to a new topic, is that um, we all went to SUNY Orange at different points in our lives, and we all have a different path. But while we were there, we all talked about, at least in our initial discussion, so we'll go a little bit farther into this right now, the importance of doing maybe some field work or working in our industries while we were at SUNY Orange, and the various opportunities that the college provided to each of us to really get some hands-on real life experience. And we all kind of fitted into our different lives. And I think the consensus is that we've all felt like it was such a positive experience. So Colleen, I'd like to start with you. Could you maybe talk about a certain experience that you've had while you're at SUNY Orange that have maybe given you some real life kind of perspective on the human services degree?
Yeah, well, I definitely think field placement, of course. I actually had, I don't know if you have a specific question on field placement, but before we get into that, I can also touch on something. I can save it if you want.
No, well, if you want to talk a little bit about kind of what that is and just kind of maybe like an elevator pitch on what that is.
Of course.
And your thoughts on it and what you really found was beneficial from that experience.
Okay, yes. So field placement is really an internship, essentially. As a human services major, you have a field placement 1 and 2. So you really get almost two internships, really. And you are sort of guided along with other students in your major, and you have a class that goes along with it. So you sort of have a field placement lecture, if you will.
Okay, so can you talk about your specific field placement?
Yes. So as far as field placement, I had really good advice. Even before I was even eligible to start my field placement in my second year, I had a sociology professor, Professor Graney, and she had told me, and it was funny because it was a random conversation. I think I had gone to office hours for some question regarding material, and she gave me advice and I never forgot it. And I did the advice that she told me. She said, pick the opposite of what your first choice would be. Pick something that you would never normally pick, that goes completely out of the comfort zone. And especially the fact that we get two, what a good opportunity to choose at least one that you would never normally choose. I really wanted to, I think my first choice perhaps would have been something different. So I immediately wanted to do a challenge. I wanted to be in a correctional facility, but I didn't get it. And I ended up doing the probation office in Newburgh for my first, which was intimidating. I didn't know what I was going to do. You just have this idea of just being with, am I going to be with, rough and tough people? Are they going to look at me like what are you doing here? Get out of here. But it was a fantastic experience. And I have to say, everyone was so nice. And I got to work with a lot of different populations, with youth, with adults, just really different people in the community. And really, if someone's meeting with their probation officer, it's kind of a second chance, whether they have done something a little bit more severe or not. They are getting back into society, and it's just interesting to see that transition. And then for my second field placement, I was at a geriatric community residence at RSS, Rehabilitation Support Services. And again, that was fantastic. And it even turned into a job, which you would not normally, I would have never even known that even existed. So the field placement, it's almost that SUNY Orange is holding your hand and saying, okay, do one of these. And you would not know. I really feel I would have had no idea where to start if I didn't have that. So.
Well, what a great opportunity. I wonder, Gina, were you able to have any interesting stories regarding your field placement?
So I did exactly what I wanted to do because I'm a creature of habit and I like to start where I'm comfortable. I think at the time I had no I had no real work experience other besides, like part-time jobs here and there through high school, so it was really the first time of being in the field at all. So I started where I was comfortable. I went back to my high school. I went to Cornwall High School. So I went back to my high school and I interned there with the social worker. I ended up doing that for both placements because, again, creature of habit. But I had to convince Professor Panesi to allow that by, really showing him I was going to get a different experience between each semester. So I really made sure to change that up. What I will say about the actual class when everyone gets together outside of there, I'm not remember the exact title of the class, I'm sorry. But when we all get together to share our experiences, that was amazing because I think it really gives you that opportunity for validation, that understanding, hearing other people's experiences where they're getting their internship done. Because human services is so broad, like I knew I was going to start in human services because I wanted to be a social worker, but there are so many different things. So I was grateful for that collaboration time for sure. And then also the projects that went along with the class really guide you of what you should be doing while you are at your placement. So I found that to be very helpful.
No, that's great. Now, so Sheri, I know you mentioned when we talked last week that I think it was after you had your first child that you started working or started your schooling at SUNY Orange, but then throughout all of that, you worked as you're growing your family, and you worked as, I think you said, a substitute paraprofessional, and then worked your way up to a substitute teacher. So did you find that being in schools, working with students, while you were, going through these educational experiences at SUNY Orange and then at SUNY New Paltz, did you feel like you were able to kind of use some of the things you were learning, in your daily work?
Absolutely. I learned things in my own home that I probably never even would have thought. Ways to deal with behavior issues that I never even would have thought differently than how I grew up. And then working in the schools, I was a one-on-one paraprofessional for a while with a middle school student. He had oppositional defiance disorder as well as Tourette's. So a lot of the things that I had learned through various courses really helped me with connecting with him, collaborating with his teachers and his professionals in the buildings. So absolutely, it was across many different disciplines.
No, I think it's great. I mean, even when I was going through my different degree paths, to get that hands-on experience as you're going through it, it just makes a world of difference because it's kind of like you're developing yourself in multiple ways, both through coursework, going to class, but then also putting it really out there and really getting to experience the real world of what our hopes and dreams are to be working with. So that's great.
Yes, it almost made me feel like I had a leg up on everybody else.
Oh, and that's great. I mean, and that's one of these benefits of being in SUNY Orange. I think the recurring theme that we're hearing is that, reach out to your professors, reach out to your advisors, take their advice, take the opportunities, because you never know what each opportunity is going to provide to you. And so if that could be my word of wisdom to anyone out there that's listening, you never know what any of these doors, when you open them, what's going to be out there for you. So now I'd like to kind of talk about some advice that each of you have been given throughout your time at SUNY Orange. And then in turn, also some advice that you would like to give to the current students at SUNY Orange, after you've now been out for however many years it's been. So Genesis, I'd like to ask you, what would you tell a student who is maybe unsure of their career path? And then to go off of that, what kind of opportunities can human services provide post-graduation?
Yeah, so in terms of being unsure of your career path, I think that most of us can relate to that. And most of us,
Right there with you, yeah.
and most of us could probably honestly say that we've probably switched many times what it is that we want to do. And then even when you get into, like, for example, being a therapist, but then there's different kinds of therapists, right? So it doesn't end there. So it literally, I say this to say that I feel like no matter what your end goal will be, there will always be evolution in that. There will always be room for growth, and you will always find that the more you know, the more you don't, and then you're discovering so much. You're continuously discovering how much is out there. For me, in all honesty, when I started the human services program, I started the human services program simply because I knew I wanted to help others. I didn't know, oh, I want to be a therapist or I want to do this. I just simply knew I wanted to help people. And that's really been throughout the years, really what I've maintained. And I've been now, it's been pretty much a decade now since I've been in the public sector, and I've had the opportunity to work with different populations. And through that, I have found where I believe I want to live for my career. And that's what, to the second part of your question, in terms of opportunities that a human services foundation provides, I think the opportunities are literally endless, because it is broad enough, yet specific enough, where if you want to get into advocacy work, you can get into advocacy work. If you want to get into law, if you want to go to law school, you can go to law school. If you want to become an occupational therapist, you can become an occupational therapist. I mean, the possibilities are quite literally endless. And I think that having such a solid foundation with a program that really places emphasis on social issues, social justice, the systems, and like that macro really sphere, and as well as the micro as well, I think is just extremely helpful regardless of the career path that you ultimately want to go into. After I finished SUNY Orange, I went to SUNY New Paltz and I continued the human services route, did a couple of more internships. But then after I finished my undergrad and went off into the world, I realized I didn't want to do direct service anymore. I actually came to terms with the fact that I didn't necessarily do best with one-on-one roles, hence why I went for my master's in public administration, because I am a very macro-minded person. But then having that foundation and having that human services backbone, if you will, really led me there. And I can honestly say that I don't know that if I would have gotten another degree that I would have had the same outcome. So I think this is just a degree in a program that really just allows you to navigate so many different options.
No, that's great. And really, it opens up that door to serving others. And I have to kind of chuckle at when you said that you thought you maybe wanted to do one thing or the other. And just by show of hands out there, who has like changed their degree or maybe their path or whatever so many times. And it's like this roller coaster of college and life. But it's so exciting once you're kind of finally able to figure out exactly what you're looking to do. So that's great. So now, Jackie, a question for you. Did you face any struggles or challenges while you were at SUNY Orange? And then how did you overcome them? And maybe perhaps what was some guidance that you received from maybe a teacher or an advisor that helped get you through any of the challenges?
I'm chuckling because yes, I did have challenges, and I am an individual who I call myself a perfectionist to my own detriment, and it did not serve me well in college at all. I grew up in a household where only A's were acceptable. And so I groomed my children that way. And now I look back and I feel so sorry for them. And so I went to college with that mindset. I need to get A's. If I'm going to succeed, being successful meant getting A's. And I remember the first math test that I failed. and I almost died. I literally almost died. And because math was never one of the things that I excelled at. Uh, and I I was having difficulty coming to grips with the fact that not all my papers would have an A on it when it came back. And I stressed myself out to the point where I ended up over by Shepherd. And I was hyperventilating. My blood pressure was up. I was on the edge of a stroke. I kid you not.
Oh gosh.
And I went in, and the young lady said to me, "Calm down." She took my blood pressure, and I started the waterworks. And I said, I think this is not working out because I'm not gonna get all A's. She said, "Calm down, Jackie. Calm down. You've never seen a certificate with A's or B written beneath it. Okay? You need to just adjust yourself, apply yourself the best way you can." And I literally had a verbal fight with her. I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm here to get A's. Nothing else is acceptable. I've told my children that, and I won't demand less of myself." And it took me a couple weeks for me to masticate on that and to digest it. And slowly but surely, I think it was after I was there for the first semester. And then the second semester, I went into the honors program. And I had a talk with Mrs. Torda. And she said, "What are you worried about? You're on the dean's list. Your GPA is 3.8 something or whatever it was." I said, "Yes, but it's not a 4.0." And she looked at me like I was crazy. But having heard that young lady in Shepherd telling me, "Listen, there's no certificate, no diploma that comes with an A or a B or a C." She said, "Come, enjoy the experience, apply yourself, do your best." And I literally told myself that almost every day. Come, enjoy the experience, and do your best. Because somewhere in the back of my head, I still wanted only A's,
Yeah,
because growing up with that mindset. But I had to tell myself that apply yourself, do your best, apply
exactly.
yourself,
No,
enjoy the experience. And I
make the
did.
most, make the most of it. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think we've all may have been in similar situations throughout our schooling at times as well. So now, Colleen, I'd like to ask a similar question to you. Did you have any, challenges that you faced throughout your college career? And then to kind of transition a little bit into students who might be looking to transfer after their time at SUNY Orange, could you provide any advice as they're going through that process?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated high school in 2011. I went to college in California for 2 years. I didn't know, I went for nutrition, so that's obviously not human services. And then I really dabbled, a class here, a class there. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did have a bunch of work experience in all different industries. And then I think I even enrolled at SUNY Rockland, Rockland
Yeah,
Community
yeah.
College. And I don't even remember. I think I canceled at the last minute or whatever. And by the way, when I started SUNY Orange, after exhausting all other situations, none of my credits transferred. So the 2 years that I did in
Oh gosh.
California, the money I spent, everything. So I was kind of at a crossroads, but personally, at that point, I felt old. I wasn't 24, 25. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And so I kind of had a goal, and I thought, just because my credits don't transfer, whatever, I'm just going to retake them. Just going to retake all my English and math and everything
Yeah.
else. So you have to do what you have to do. So that was a struggle. And to be honest, it felt at that age, 24, 25, I have a lot of friends that are already in their industries, thriving,
Sure.
living alone, and and it was just, I almost felt so childlike again to be back in school. And I did work part-time, but I have to go home and study for my statistics test while other people are getting engaged. And it just seemed like everyone was growing up and I was going behind. But I have to say it all worked out. But as far as just a transition for transferring, I think that would really depend on your own career goals, what you wanted to do. The process for me was quite seamless. All my credits transferred as far as SUNY to CUNY. I went to, and I'm about to graduate.
So it worked the second time.
Yeah, I worked the second time, right? And so I went, now I'm at Hunter College about to graduate. So I guess it would really depend what your career goals are as far as transferring. I would recommend transferring, and I would not recommend taking a break in between, but that's just me. For me, I wanted to keep that momentum going, and I genuinely felt behind. So I wanted to kind of, speed things up a bit.
I can't blame you. And I think maybe some people might feel a similar way. Do you think it's important as you're going through it to also be working in human services in a certain way, whether it be internships or whether it be, I know we talked about field work earlier, but do you think it's important to try to immerse yourself in that experience throughout your entire college career?
I would try. You know that it's not always possible, especially given the last year. It's not very easy to get things virtually, but I would get creative. I would try. And if not everyone can have a job when they're going to school full time, it's hard to juggle both. If you can't have a part-time job either, and you're just doing school, and even if you don't have an internship, don't be afraid for volunteer work. I got involved with volunteer work with NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So I had done that while I was attending SUNY Orange as well. So that really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and really I connected to the community unlike ever before, which I'm so grateful for. But if you can't work and you're not doing an internship, there's no need to panic. Even if you're just Googling things and educating yourself, and don't be afraid to ask your professors if there's any opportunities, because you may not know of any opportunities, but they do. And if you're a good student, perhaps maybe they could spread the word. Always good to have your resume on hand personally, maybe in a folder, to be honest. I know I just so happened that one day I had my resume in my folder and I handed it to Nolly Climbs, who was, I'm sure he's still teaching there as an adjunct, but he's in charge of RSS, and I ended up getting a job, right? A few days later, I interviewed with him, and it just so happened that I had my resume. So, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, even if it's just a creative temporary role. Any little bit helps, and it will guide you, if this is the right path that you want to take, or maybe it's an incorrect path and it guides you a completely different way. So.
Oh, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Once again, it's when those doors present themselves, don't be afraid to open them and walk through and see what's on the other side, because you never know. So now, Gina, after SUNY Orange, is there anything you would suggest students consider as they plan for their future?
Wow.
I know it's a loaded question. It's not a loaded question. It's kind of a broad question. So are there any, insider tips that you feel like you'd like to share with anybody?
Something that I feel like over the last year has really resonated with me, and I think just looking back on life in general, is to do things with intention. Because a lot of the times we do things comfortably and out of habit. And think about why you're doing what you're doing, especially everyone here, whether it's education, human services, you are making a decision to help other people, which is number one, give yourself a pat on the back because it's not an easy decision to make. But number two, remember why you're doing it. I was lucky to know what I want. Knowing what I wanted to do. Is that always the case? No. But I knew what I wanted to do because of a life experience. And sometimes you can't plan for that. Like sometimes there are things that go on in your life that you take a different path or you make a different decision. So going about life with intention and really just thinking about, why am I doing this? What is keeping me in the library late at night? What is keeping me doing that paper or studying? Like, it's really hard to not get burnt out. it's really hard to not get tired. I think just talking about working in the field while you're in school, I was working 2 part-time jobs, totally unrelated to the field. I was working at a restaurant, I was working at a tanning salon, I was doing my internship, and I was taking 19 and a half credits.
Oh my gosh.
I still think sometimes that I'm going to wake up and it's still that semester because it still haunts me. But I had to do what I had to do to get where I wanted to be. It's not easy. Again, I don't think it would be possible with a bunch of people in my life and all the support I had at the time. But I wanted to pay for school. I wanted to get the degree done because, kind of going back on what you guys were just talking about a little bit with the transferring, I wanted to have my degree done for more of a seamless transfer. I was lucky where I went from a SUNY to a SUNY, but I just felt like having that little bow on it, they wouldn't nitpick all of the classes and the credits and such. So I think there are going to be those times where you are like, why am I doing this? Why did I not get that A on the paper? But remembering there's a greater goal at the end and remembering why you're doing that.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Chris,
Yes.
if I might add.
No, absolutely.
Yes, as you prepare to move on from SUNY Orange, I think it's my friend here just gave some wonderful bits of advice about intentionality and that sort of thing. And I would ask that we all take ownership of everything that we do. You're going out into the world, you're probably going to continue with your studies, but all the skills that you are garnering now, you're going to take that with you, either into the workforce or to finish up your degree and that sort of thing. And be aware that what COVID just showed us is that nothing is set in stone. We're always changing. And be mindful of that. Be mindful of the fact that whatever your career path is, it's going to change. Keep up with the changes. Always study, always be learning something new. Don't be too comfortable where you are. Keep on learning. The technology is changing every day. Be aware of that. Be aware of what is happening in your field, and keep a positive attitude. No one wants to be around someone who is, always down in the mouth, to be working with someone who is always a Debbie Downer. Keep that positive attitude, even in your school with your classmates, with your peers. Have that positive outlook. We will all have our down days, but if we try to generate and to maintain a positive outlook, you will see things differently. Instead of with blinders on, you'll see a 180 degree and perhaps 360. Wouldn't that be awesome? And it's all about that mindset. And set goals for yourself. We need to set goals, set attainable goals, set goals that you can revisit along the way, and learn from feedback. There are other folks around you who are seeing you, so learn from feedback. So these are some of the things that I wanted to share with us as we move forward with our careers or our educational pathways.
Thank you for sharing that. A question that I'd like to pose, because actually, if we look at the time, we're cruising right along here to circle around to some of these last things. I hate to have such an abrupt change, but now this is to any of you. If you could go back and do it differently, would you? Or is there something else you would like to maybe add on to your schooling in the future? That's anybody, or maybe one or two of you, if anyone wants to comment on that.
I wouldn't do anything differently.
Okay.
I really wouldn't. Like, I believe things come to us when we're ready for them and when they're supposed to happen. I think I'm just so grateful for the experience I had. That's why I wouldn't do it differently. Maybe get a little involved more on campus, honestly, maybe more groups, maybe a little more networking. Sure. In terms of like with my peers and more of the clubs and such. But educational journey wise, like over time, I feel like everything, like I am where I wanted to end up. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think we've used this so many times. I think SUNY Orange really has been the foundation for me. And without it, I wouldn't be where I am, so in terms of moving forward, I think about it sometimes. I look at a doctoral program here and there, and then I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then I go and I exit the screens. But
well, you never know. It's that door that might come up in front of you, and you might need to take it one day. It might not need to be
if it's
tomorrow.
supposed to happen, it will. So we'll see. We'll
that's
see.
great. Anyone else have any, thoughts on maybe anything they do differently or some goals for the future?
Chris, I wouldn't change anything. I'm doing what I believe in. I believe in fostering the growth and development of young minds. And it is my passion and I'm living it. I'm definitely going to continue with my education in this field, but I am doing what I've always wanted to do, and that is to help to foster the younger ones getting to where they can be, and to help them navigate, the treacherous road that is before them, and make sure that when they get to our age and to SUNY Orange, that they're well adjusted. So I wouldn't change it. I love what I do. I love it.
Good, thanks. So now a question that I think I might put some of you on the spot. What is one thing you would go back and tell yourself your first semester at SUNY Orange, knowing what you know about life and the world and the experiences that you've gone through? What is one thing? And Sheri, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
I'm gonna start with, I didn't have a very positive growing up. I had an abusive father in many ways. I spent my whole life being told I couldn't do it. I would never be it. So if I had the chance to see myself in my first semester, I would tell myself that I can do it. It was just the matter of taking it one day at a time. I took it one day, and then another day came and I took that day, and then I took the test and it was that day and it was done. And then I took another day and it was just one day at a time. And I would just tell myself that I can do it. So.
Great, thank you. Jackie, is there anything you would tell your past self?
To breathe. Breathe, Jackie, breathe. Absolutely. And as Sheri just said, you can do it. And I did do it. I learned how to breathe, and I learned how to adjust and to pivot. So yes, I tell myself that August morning, breathe.
Good. That's good advice for sure. How about you, Gina? Any thoughts?
So when you first posed the question, the first thing I thought to myself was exactly what Sheri said. You can do it. I think you can do it, and trust the process, and definitely breathe. Like Jackie said, breathe.
No, good. It's good. There's a recurring theme for anyone listening. Genesis, anything to add?
Yes, I would definitely add, you don't have to have it all figured out. I think too often we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially when we're reaching our final semester and we're thinking about the next step. We feel this need to have it all figured out. I mean, I remember, I didn't make the decision because I got accepted into I got accepted into 3 or 4 different schools. And I literally waited until probably the very last minute for the acceptance at New Paltz, because at one point I'm sitting here feeling like I had to be 22 years old, mapping out the rest of my life. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. So I would just encourage all of you to literally it's okay if you don't have the exact clarity. Just know that whether you're in the human services program, whether you're in the education program, you're leaving SUNY Orange with such a strong foundation that regardless of your next step, you are in good shape. Whether you decide to go to school immediately or not, I can tell you that after SUNY Orange, I did immediately go get my bachelor's because I was very confident about wanting to get my sociology degree with the human services concentration, which, by the way, if anybody is interested in continuing the human services path, I would 100% recommend that program at SUNY New Paltz. It's affordable. Your credits will transfer. And Meta Christiansen, who is the head of that program, is amazing. She is amazing. She is dynamite. So I would 100% recommend that program if human services and being in the area is what you want to do. But between my undergraduate and my graduate degree, I took 3 years. I didn't go get my master's right away because I genuinely didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want an MSW. I knew that much. And so I took my time. So just take your time, and it's okay if you take some breathing room to figure it out.
No, great. Thank you for that. And then Colleen, anything you tell your first semester self, or any last thoughts to share with those listening in today?
Yeah, honestly, I feel a little emotional even just thinking back to the first semester. If I could tell myself one thing, I would honestly, I'm proud of you, Colleen. And if anyone who's listening now, like, be proud of yourself. You know, it's not easy. Just because you're at Orange County Community College, it's college, it's hard. It's really hard, and it's not that easy. And just because you're a student doesn't mean it's not as important as, you know, any other career. It is a career. And also, just one piece of advice I always like to share with people, because I have had so many bones thrown at me. I don't know how there's even enough of the bones, you know, it's things getting thrown at me left and right. I get myself, and things just get thrown at me, the weirdest and the hardest situations. But just, if it's something you want, let nothing stand in your way. It doesn't matter what it is, keep going, and you will get there. It doesn't, and there's no timeline. I still have to remind myself that I'm just about to start my master's in the fall. There's no timeline to life. Age is just a number. You'll get there when you get there. And don't you think it's better to take your time doing something that you really want to do than being stuck in a career from the beginning that you absolutely you hate it, you don't want to do it, you don't feel a connection toward? I'd rather take my time and really enjoy what I want to do. And then just one last thing, because this definitely helped me at Octu, or SUNY Orange, I'm sorry. You get in life what you have the courage to ask for. Don't be afraid to ask, even if it's a weird question, even if you're shy, even if you're thinking it's an absolute no, because I can't tell you how many times things have worked out. So it's not always what if they don't work out, what if they do? So that would be my last piece of advice.
No, that's great. And I thank all of you for sharing part of yourself. I think, yeah, I feel, you know, you've really shared some personal stories, some great advice. And if anyone looks in the chat box right now, I was a business major, but I am so impressed by the chairs of both the education and the human services departments, because even from our initial meeting last week, they're just, I get this sense that both these departments are such families, and that whether it be the chairs or the faculty or your fellow students or the alumni, we're all rooting for everybody. And don't be afraid to reach out to the people that you have the ability to talk to and to get guidance from. And so I think I'd speak for everyone here that for any of the students that are new to SUNY Orange or are changing majors or changing programs, like the panelists have said, use the resources that are available to you and make the best of every situation. Of course, to breathe through it all, and you will get through it. So with that being the case, I wish we could go on and talk about so many other things. It seems like we just breached the beginning here. But on behalf of myself and the SUNY Orange Foundation, we would like to just thank our panelists, Colleen, Gina, Genesis, Jackie, and Sheri, for being here with us tonight. We'd like to thank everyone who's been listening in to this presentation. We'd like to thank all the folks that have submitted questions for us here this evening. And then I'd just like to personally thank Jen and Dawn over at the SUNY Orange Foundation and the Alumni Relations Committees for having me here. This really has been an honor for me as well. And maybe one day in the future, we'll all be able to continue this conversation again. So thank you once again, everyone, for being here. This does conclude our presentation here tonight. And all the best to everyone, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck to everyone.
Thank you.